Marcus Reeves wiped the grease from his hands as he stared at the massive alien vessel that had crashed into the asteroid field near his salvage station. The ship was unlike anything he'd seen in his 20 years of working the Outer Rim. Its hull gleamed with a strange purple metal that seemed to shift and flow like liquid mercury, and strange symbols pulsed faintly along its surface. Another piece of junk from the void, he muttered to himself. But his experienced eye caught something different about this one. The crash damage was minimal, almost like the ship had made a controlled landing rather than crashed. Most alien ships that ended up in his salvage yard were completely destroyed, their technology fried beyond recognition. Marcus had built his reputation on being able to fix anything. Human ships, alien drones, even some of the more exotic machinery that traders brought through the system. His small station orbited a dead planet in the Kepler 442 system, far from the busy shipping lanes where the big corporations operated. Out here, you learned to make do with what you had, and Marcus had gotten very good at improvising. The airlock on the alien ship was sealed tight, but Marcus had dealt with worse. He grabbed his plasma cutter and went to work. The metal was tougher than expected, requiring him to adjust the settings twice before he finally cut through. The moment the seal broke, a rush of stale air escaped, carrying with it a scent he couldn't identify, something wild and earthy. Inside, the ship was a maze of organic-looking corridors that curved and twisted in ways that hurt to look at. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, which seemed to pulse with a faint heartbeat. Marcus activated his portable scanner and began mapping the layout. The ship was bigger inside than it appeared from the outside, which shouldn't have been possible but was just another mystery to solve. The bridge was located at what he assumed was the front of the vessel. The control panels were arranged in a circular pattern around a central chair that looked more like a throne. Everything was covered in the same flowing symbols that decorated the hull, but these were dark and lifeless. Marcus ran his hands over the controls, feeling the smooth surface that was warm to the touch despite the ship being powered down. "Let's see what makes you tick," he said, pulling out his diagnostic tools. The first thing any good mechanic learned was that most technology, no matter how alien, followed certain basic principles. Power had to flow from somewhere to somewhere else. Control systems needed to communicate with the components they controlled, and most importantly, there was usually a way to turn things on if you could figure out where to look. Marcus spent hours tracing power conduits through the ship's organic corridors. The technology was fascinating. Instead of traditional circuits, the ship seemed to use a network of biomechanical tubes that carried some kind of energy-conducting fluid. Many of the tubes had been damaged in whatever event had brought the ship here, leaking a silver substance that had crystallized on the floor. The engineering section was a marvel of alien design. The power core was a sphere of crystalline material suspended in a web of the biomechanical conduits. It was completely dark, but Marcus could see stress fractures running through its surface. Whatever had happened to this ship, it had put enormous strain on its power systems. Power cores cracked, but not shattered, Marcus diagnosed, circling the sphere and taking measurements. Conduit network is damaged in 17 locations, causing power loss and system failures. Main control nexus is offline due to insufficient power flow. He'd seen similar problems in human ships, though never on this scale. The solution would be complex, requiring him to essentially rebuild the ship's entire power distribution network. It would take days, maybe weeks, but Marcus had nothing but time. And the more he studied the alien technology, the more fascinated he became. The ship's design was incredibly advanced. The biomechanical systems could apparently self-repair under normal conditions, growing new conduits to replace damaged ones. The power core seemed to be some kind of zero-point energy generator that could theoretically run forever. Even the artificial gravity system was beyond anything humans had developed. Marcus started with the power core, using his plasma welder to carefully seal the stress fractures. The crystalline material was unlike anything he'd worked with before. It seemed to respond to his tools as if it were alive, flowing and reshaping itself to accept the repairs. It took him 6 hours to complete the work, but when he finished, the core was structurally sound again. Next came the tedious work of repairing the conduit network. Marcus had to crawl through maintenance shafts that were clearly designed for beings with a different body structure than humans. The biomechanical tubes could be spliced and regrown using a combination of his welding tools and some kind of growth catalyst he found in the ship's repair systems. Each repair was like performing surgery on a living creature. The conduits would twitch and pulse when he worked on them, and sometimes he could swear he heard something like a sigh echoing through the ship's corridors. But Marcus had worked on stranger things, and he pushed through his unease to focus on the technical challenges. As he worked deeper into the ship, Marcus began to notice something odd. Some of the damage patterns didn't match what he would expect from an accident. Certain conduits had been severed with precision cuts, and some control panels showed signs of having been deliberately sabotaged. It looked like someone had tried to disable the ship from the inside. What were you running from? Marcus wondered aloud as he sealed another damaged conduit. The question nagged at him as he worked, but he pushed it aside. Whatever had happened here was in the past. Right now, he had a job to do. On the third day, Marcus finally managed to restore power to the main control nexus. The moment the connections were complete, the entire ship came alive around him. Lights flowed along the corridors like racing liquid, and the walls themselves began to pulse with renewed energy. The air recycling systems hummed to life, replacing the stale atmosphere with something fresh and clean. Marcus made his way back to the bridge, where the control panels now blazed with alien script. He couldn't read the symbols, but the patterns of light and color gave him clues about the ship's status. Most systems showed green indicators, but there were still several red warnings that he couldn't interpret. Computer? He tried, feeling foolish for talking to an alien machine. System status report? To his surprise, the ship responded. A melodic voice filled the bridge, speaking in a language that sounded like music mixed with the howling of wind. After a moment, the voice switched to accented but understandable English. Language matrix updated. Greetings, unknown being. I am the navigation consciousness of the vessel Moonhowl. You have restored primary power to my systems. Query. Are you friend or foe? Marcus blinked in surprise. He'd worked on ships with AI systems before, but nothing this sophisticated. I'm Marcus Reeves, and I'm just a mechanic. I found your ship crashed in the asteroid field and thought I'd try to fix it. I'm not your enemy. Scanning biological markers, the AI replied. Species unknown. Technology level. Primitive but effective. Emotional indicators suggest truthfulness. Provisional classification, ally. Warning, critical systems remain offline. Life support for primary passenger is failing. Primary passenger? Marcus asked, suddenly alert. You mean there's someone alive on this ship? Affirmative. Captain Lyra of the Fenari Pack has been in medical stasis since the emergency landing. Stasis pod power reserves are critically low. Estimated time remaining, 4 hours, 17 minutes. Marcus felt his heart rate spike. All this time he'd been working on what he thought was an abandoned ship. There had been someone dying inside it. Where is the medical bay? Can you guide me there? Follow the blue indicators, the AI responded, and suddenly a line of blue lights appeared on the floor, leading away from the bridge. Warning. Medical bay power systems require complete restoration for stasis revival procedures. Time remaining, 4 hours, 16 minutes. Marcus ran through the corridors, following the blue lights deeper into the ship than he'd explored before. The medical bay was located in what seemed to be the ship's most protected section, surrounded by multiple layers of armored bulkheads. When the doors finally opened, Marcus stopped short at what he saw. The room was dominated by a large stasis pod made of the same flowing crystal material as the power core. Inside, barely visible through the translucent surface, was a humanoid figure. But as Marcus approached for a closer look, he realized this wasn't quite human. The being in the pod was tall and lean, with elongated limbs and features that were hauntingly beautiful. Her skin had a pale blue tint, and her hair was silver white. But what caught Marcus's attention immediately were the distinctly wolf-like ears that protruded from her head and the fur that covered her arms and neck in intricate patterns. Marcus started to say, then stopped. He'd heard stories about the various alien species that lived in the distant parts of the galaxy, but he'd never seen anything like this. The being, Lyra, the AI had called her, looked like someone had taken a human and blended them with a wolf, creating something that was both familiar and completely alien. The Fenari are a proud warrior species, the AI explained, apparently reading his thoughts. Captain Lyra is a pack leader, fleeing from those who would see her people enslaved. The medical pod has kept her alive, but the power fluctuations from the damaged systems have compromised its integrity. Marcus pulled out his scanners and began analyzing the medical bay's power systems. They were even more complex than the main engineering section, with backup systems layered on backup systems. But the damage was extensive. It looked like this section had taken a direct hit from some kind of energy weapon. "How long was she in stasis?" Marcus asked as he began tracing power conduits. 47 days, the AI replied. "The emergency stasis was activated when we encountered pursuit vessels in the Proxima system. Captain Lyra ordered the navigation jump while she was already wounded from the previous battle." Marcus worked faster than he ever had before. The medical bay's power systems were incredibly sophisticated, designed to monitor and maintain life at the cellular level. Every circuit he repaired revealed 10 more that needed attention. But gradually, he began to bring the systems back online. "Time remaining, 2 hours, 31 minutes, the AI announced as Marcus sealed another power coupling. "I'm working as fast as I can," Marcus replied, sweat beading on his forehead despite the cool air. He'd never had someone's life depending directly on his mechanical skills before. And the pressure was intense. As more systems came online, Marcus began to understand the full extent of what had happened to the ship. The Moonhowl had been part of a small fleet of refugee vessels, carrying members of the Fenari species away from their conquered homeworld. They'd been pursued across multiple star systems by something the AI referred to only as the Hunters. "Who are the Hunters?" Marcus asked as he worked. "Slavers and genetic harvesters," the AI replied, its melodic voice taking on a darker tone. "They seek to capture and exploit species with useful genetic traits. The Fenari possess enhanced senses, strength, and pack bonding abilities that make them valuable commodities in certain markets." Marcus felt a chill that had nothing to do with the ship's temperature. He'd heard rumors about alien slave traders operating in the Outer Rim, but he'd never encountered them directly. The thought that this beautiful, wolf-like being in the stasis pod was fleeing from such a fate made him work even harder. "Time remaining, 47 minutes, the AI warned. Marcus had restored power to most of the medical bay's systems, but the stasis revival process required perfect power regulation. One fluctuation could kill the patient during the delicate awakening procedure. He needed to reroute power from non-essential systems throughout the ship to ensure a stable supply. "Can you shut down everything except life support and medical?" Marcus asked. "Negative. Passive scanning systems must remain online to detect approaching vessels. If the Hunters have followed our trail, we need advance warning." Marcus nodded, understanding the logic but frustrated by the limitation. He'd have to find another way to stabilize the power supply. Looking around the medical bay, he spotted something that might work. An emergency power coupling that could be jury-rigged to provide backup power during the revival process. Time remaining, 22 minutes. Marcus's hands flew over his tools, connecting his own portable power cells to the alien systems in a configuration that should theoretically work. The technology gap was enormous, but electricity was electricity, and power distribution followed certain universal laws. "Ready to attempt revival," Marcus announced as he finished the connections. "Warning. Revival. Procedure. Success probability is 63% with current power configuration," the AI reported. "That's better odds than I usually get." Marcus replied grimly. "Do it." The stasis pod began to glow with increasing intensity as power flowed through the revival systems. Inside, the wolf-like being stirred slightly, her enhanced metabolism beginning to accelerate. Marcus watched his jury-rigged power couplings, ready to adjust them if the power flow became unstable. Slowly, the stasis pod began to drain, revealing more of its occupant. Lyra was even more striking than Marcus had first thought. She was tall and athletic, with a grace that was evident even in unconsciousness. The fur patterns on her arms and neck were intricate and beautiful, like living tattoos. Her wolf-like ears twitched slightly as she began to wake. Then her eyes opened, revealing irises that were a brilliant golden color. They fixed immediately on Marcus, and he saw intelligence, wariness, and something else, a predator's instinct to assess threats. Lyra's hand moved to where a weapon should have been, but the medical restraints held her in place. "Easy," Marcus said, raising his hands to show he wasn't armed. "You're safe. I'm the one who repaired your ship." Lyra's golden eyes studied him intently, and Marcus had the uncomfortable feeling that she was reading things about him that he didn't even know himself. When she finally spoke, her voice was a rich contralto with an accent he couldn't place. "You are not Fenari," she stated. "Nor are you one of the hunter species. "What are you, and why did you help me?" "I'm human," Marcus replied, "and I helped because that's what I do. I fix things that are broken." Lyra sat up slowly, her golden eyes never leaving Marcus as she assessed her surroundings. The medical bay's systems hummed quietly around them, monitoring her vital signs and adjusting the atmosphere to optimal levels for her recovery. Marcus noticed that her ears were constantly moving, picking up sounds he couldn't even hear. "Human," she repeated, as if testing the word. "I have heard stories of your species. They say humans are weak, short-lived creatures who make up for their limitations with stubbornness and cleverness." She tilted her head, studying him with an intensity that made Marcus uncomfortable. "You do not look particularly impressive." "Thanks," Marcus replied dryly. "You don't look too bad yourself, considering you've been in a coma for almost 2 months. A small smile played at the corners of Lyra's mouth, revealing teeth that were slightly more pointed than human normal. "Fenari do not go into comas. We enter healing stasis, which is completely different." She swung her legs over the side of the medical pod, moving with fluid grace, despite her long confinement. "How extensive was the damage to my ship?" "Substantial," Marcus admitted. "Your power core was cracked. The biomechanical conduits were severed in multiple locations, and half your control systems were offline. It took me 3 days to get the main systems operational again." Lyra stood up fully, and Marcus was struck by how tall she was, nearly 7 feet, with proportions that somehow made her height seem natural rather than awkward. She wore a form-fitting garment that looked like it was made from the same material as the ship's hull, adapting to her movements like a second skin. 3 days, she mused, walking to one of the medical bay's control panels. Her fingers danced over the alien script, calling up system reports. "You accomplished in 3 days what a Fenari engineering team would need weeks to complete. Impressive, for a primitive species." Marcus bristled slightly at being called primitive, but held his tongue. He'd learned long ago that different species had different perspectives on technology and advancement. Besides, he was curious about the Fenari and their situation. "The AI mentioned you were running from hunters," Marcus said. "What exactly are you dealing with?" Lyra's expression darkened, and her ears flattened against her head, a gesture that clearly indicated anger or distress. "The hunters are a coalition of species that profit from slavery and genetic harvesting. They conquered my homeworld 6 months ago, not for territory or resources, but for the Fenari themselves." She moved to another control panel, pulling up what looked like star charts. "My people have certain genetic traits that are highly valued in the illegal markets. Enhanced senses, increased physical capabilities, pack-bonding instincts that make us loyal servants. The hunters capture us, break our spirits, and sell us to the highest bidder." Marcus felt anger building in his chest. The idea of intelligent beings being treated as commodities was revolting. "How many of your people escaped?" "Not enough," Lyra replied quietly. "When the invasion began, we managed to evacuate perhaps 10% of our population across multiple ships. But the hunters have been pursuing us relentlessly. My ship was part of a convoy of 12 vessels. As far as I know, I am the only survivor." The weight of that statement hung in the air between them. Marcus couldn't imagine carrying the responsibility of being the sole survivor of his entire species. "I'm sorry," he said simply. Lyra looked at him with surprise, as if kindness from a stranger was unexpected. "Your species shows compassion to those outside your pack?" "Some of us do," Marcus replied. "It's one of the things that makes us human." Before Lyra could respond, the ship's AI interrupted their conversation. "Alert. Sensor contact detected at the edge of the system. Configuration matches hunter pursuit vessels. Estimated time to intercept, 6 hours. Marcus felt his blood run cold. "They followed you here?" Lyra was already moving, her demeanor shifting from conversational to military command mode. "Impossible. I disabled all tracking systems before entering stasis, unless..." She paused, a look of realization crossing her face. The power fluctuations from the damaged systems may have created intermittent beacon signals. If the hunters have been monitoring this region of space, they could have detected us. "What kind of ships are we talking about?" Marcus asked, following Lyra as she headed for the bridge. "Hunter vessels are heavily armed and designed for capturing rather than destroying their targets," Lyra explained as they moved through the corridors. "They will use disable weapons first, then board the ship to take prisoners. They prefer their merchandise alive and undamaged." When they reached the bridge, Lyra took her position in the central chair, and the control panels immediately responded to her presence. The alien script flowed and changed, becoming more complex and urgent. Marcus watched in fascination as she interfaced with the ship's systems, her fingers moving in patterns that seemed almost like a dance. Navigation systems are online, but barely, she reported. The jump drive sustained damage during our escape from Proxima. Maximum jump range is severely limited. How limited? Marcus asked. Perhaps 1 light year, maybe 2. If we push the systems beyond safe parameters. Not enough to escape a determined pursuit. Lyra's ears flattened against her head again. The hunters will have multiple ships and superior firepower. Running is not an option. Marcus studied the tactical display that Lyra had called up. 3 ships were approaching their position, each one significantly larger than the Moonhowl. If this were a human engagement, he would have recommended immediate surrender. But these weren't human enemies. What about fighting? Marcus asked. Lyra shook her head. The Moonhowl was designed as a transport vessel, not a warship. We have defensive capabilities, but nothing that could stand against dedicated hunter combat ships. They have been perfecting their capture techniques for centuries. Marcus was quiet for a moment, his mechanical mind working through the problem. Every machine had weaknesses, even alien ones. The key was finding the right approach. Tell me about their ships. How do they work? Hunter vessels use quantum field generators to disable their targets, Lyra explained. They project an energy field that interferes with power systems, causing ships to become dead in space. Then they use tractor beams to bring the disabled vessel aboard their mothership. Quantum fields, Marcus mused. That means they have to get close to use their disable weapons effectively. Yes, but their ships are heavily shielded and armored. Even if we could damage them, we would need multiple direct hits to have any effect. Marcus moved to one of the engineering stations, calling up technical displays of the Moonhowl systems. The biomechanical technology was fascinating, but he was beginning to understand its basic principles. What if we didn't try to fight them ship to ship? Lyra looked at him with curiosity. Explain. These biomechanical conduits that run throughout your ship, Marcus said, highlighting the network on the display. They carry energy, right? What if we could overload them temporarily, create a massive energy discharge? The ship would be destroyed, Lyra replied immediately. The conduit network is too integrated with life support and structural systems. Not the whole network, Marcus clarified, his excitement growing as the plan took shape. Just specific sections. If we could isolate parts of the power grid and then cause them to overload at precisely the right moment. Understanding dawned on Lyra's face. An electromagnetic pulse. It would disable any ship within a certain radius. Exactly. And since the hunter ships rely on quantum fields to disable their targets, they probably aren't heavily shielded against electromagnetic interference. We could turn their own tactic against them. Lyra was quiet for a long moment, considering the implications. The risk is enormous. If we miscalculate the overload, we could destroy ourselves along with the hunter ships, and we would only have one chance. After the pulse, our own systems would be damaged as well. But it could work, Marcus insisted. I've seen similar techniques used with human ships, though never on this scale. The principle is sound. You would risk your life for someone you met only hours ago? Lyra asked, studying Marcus with those piercing golden eyes. Marcus shrugged. Like I said, it's what makes us human. Besides, I didn't spend 3 days fixing this ship just to watch it get captured by slave traders. Lyra stood up from her chair and approached Marcus. She was tall enough that she had to look down at him, but there was respect in her expression now, not condescension. Very well, human Marcus. We will try your plan, but if it fails, I will not allow myself to be taken alive. Understood, Marcus replied. But it won't fail. I don't build things that don't work. They spent the next 4 hours preparing for the hunter arrival. Marcus worked with the ship's engineering systems to identify the optimal conduit sections for overload, while Lyra plotted their approach pattern and timing. The plan required precise coordination. They would need to lure the hunter ships into exactly the right position before triggering the electromagnetic pulse. The hunters prefer to approach from multiple vectors, Lyra explained as they fine-tuned their strategy. They will spread out to prevent their target from escaping, then close in simultaneously. We need to make them think we are trying to run, so they maintain their formation. Marcus nodded, making final adjustments to the overload sequence. How close do they need to be for the quantum field to work? Approximately 5,000 kilometers. But the field becomes more effective the closer they get. They will try to position themselves within 1,000 kilometers before activating it. Perfect, Marcus said. The electromagnetic pulse will be most effective at that range as well. As the hunter ships approached, Marcus and Lyra took their positions on the bridge. The alien vessels appeared on the tactical display as angular, predatory shapes that somehow managed to look menacing even as wireframe representations. Their approach was methodical and professional. These were clearly experienced hunters who had captured many ships before. They are hailing us, the ship's AI reported. Put them through, Lyra commanded. The main display flickered, revealing the face of what was obviously the lead hunter. The being was humanoid but distinctly reptilian, with scaled skin and cold, calculating eyes. When it spoke, its voice was harsh and sibilant. Fenari vessel, you will prepare for boarding. Resistance is futile. Surrender now and your death will be quick. I don't think so, Lyra replied, her voice steady despite the situation. The hunter's expression didn't change. Your ship is damaged and alone. We are 3 fully armed vessels with experienced crews. You cannot escape, and you cannot fight. Surrender is your only option. We'll take our chances, Marcus said, moving into the view of the communications pickup. The hunter's eyes fixed on him with sudden interest. A human. Interesting. Your species has recently come to the attention of certain buyers. You will make a profitable addition to our cargo. The transmission ended, and Marcus felt a chill at the casual way the alien had discussed selling him. These beings truly saw other intelligent species as nothing more than commodities. Hunter vessels are moving into attack formation, the AI reported. Distance: 15,000 kilometers, and closing. Begin evasive maneuvers, Lyra ordered, her hands dancing over the control panels. Make it look like we're trying to escape toward the outer system. The Moonhowl began to move, its damaged engines straining to provide acceleration. To the hunters, it would look like a desperate attempt to flee. But Marcus and Lyra were actually maneuvering to draw their pursuers into the optimal position for the electromagnetic pulse. 10,000 kilometers, the AI reported. Marcus watched his improvised overload system, making final adjustments to the timing sequence. Everything had to be perfect. Too early, and the hunters would be too far away. Too late, and they would be disabled by the quantum field. 8,000 kilometers. Hunter vessels are spreading out to surround us. Perfect, Lyra muttered. They're following standard capture protocol exactly. 5,000 kilometers. Warning. Detecting quantum field generation from hunter vessels. Not yet, Marcus said, his finger hovering over the overload trigger. Wait for it. 3,000 kilometers. Quantum field intensity increasing. The lights on the Moonhowl's bridge began to flicker as the hunter disable field started to affect their systems. Marcus could feel the ship's power fluctuating, but their modifications held. 2,000 kilometers. 1,000 kilometers. Warning. Quantum field. Reaching critical interference levels. Now, Lyra shouted. Marcus triggered the electromagnetic pulse. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then every light on the ship went out, plunging them into complete darkness. An instant later, the backup systems came online, revealing a transformed tactical display. All 3 hunter ships were dead in space, their sleek forms tumbling slowly without power or control. The electromagnetic pulse had worked perfectly, overloading their systems just as Marcus had predicted. Incredible. Lyra breathed, staring at the disabled ships. In all my years of fighting the hunters, I have never seen their vessels so helpless. Marcus was already moving to assess the damage to their own ship. How long before their backup systems come online? Hunter vessels have excellent redundancy, Lyra replied, calling up technical specifications. Perhaps 20 minutes before they can restore basic power, an hour before they can maneuver effectively. Then we need to move fast, Marcus said. Our jump drive took some damage from the pulse, but it should still be functional. Where's the nearest safe system? Lyra was already plotting a course. The Kepler 438 system has a human colony world. If we can reach it, the hunters will not pursue us into human space. Why not? Humans have a reputation, Lyra explained with what might have been a smile. Your species is known to be problematic when provoked. The hunters prefer easier targets. Marcus couldn't help but grin at that. Good to know our reputation precedes us. The jump to hyperspace was rougher than normal due to their damaged systems, but they made it out of the asteroid field safely. Behind them, the hunter ships were beginning to show signs of power restoration, but it was too late. The Moonhowl had escaped. As they traveled through hyperspace, Marcus and Lyra worked together to assess and repair the damage from the electromagnetic pulse. It was during this time that Marcus began to truly understand the sophistication of Fenari technology and culture. Your biomechanical systems are incredible, Marcus admitted as they worked on a damaged power coupling. The way they can self-repair and adapt is beyond anything humans have developed, and your improvisation abilities are remarkable, Lyra replied. No Fenari engineer would have attempted what you did today. We tend to follow established procedures and protocols. Sometimes the best solution is the one nobody expects, Marcus said. That's probably why humans have managed to survive as long as we have, despite being primitive. Lyra was quiet for a moment. I owe you an apology. When I called your species primitive, I was speaking from ignorance. Today you have shown me that advancement takes many forms. Over the following hours, as they traveled toward human space, Marcus learned more about the Fenari and their culture. They were a pack-based species, with strong bonds of loyalty and cooperation. Their society was built around the concept of mutual support and shared responsibility. The idea of leaving pack members behind was almost incomprehensible to them, which made Lyra's situation as a sole survivor even more tragic. What will you do when we reach the human colony? Marcus asked as they neared the end of their journey. I do not know, Lyra admitted. I am a ship captain without a ship or crew, a pack leader without a pack. Among humans, I will be an alien refugee, with no resources, and no future. Marcus considered this. You could stay with me. Lyra looked at him with surprise. What? My salvage station could use someone with your technical knowledge, Marcus explained. And to be honest, it gets pretty lonely out there by myself. If you're willing to learn about human technology, I could teach you the salvage business. You would offer shelter to an alien stranger? You're not a stranger anymore, Marcus replied simply. We're partners. We've been through combat together, worked on repairs side by side. That creates bonds that go beyond species. Lyra studied him for a long moment with those golden eyes. This pack bonding behavior you speak of, is it common among humans? Common enough, Marcus said. We have a saying, no one left behind. It means you don't abandon people who are counting on you. And you believe I am counting on you? Marcus shrugged. Right now, we're counting on each other. That's how partnerships work. When they finally emerged from hyperspace in the Kepler 438 system, Marcus felt a sense of homecoming. Human patrol ships immediately hailed them, and Marcus identified himself and requested safe passage. The response was immediate and positive. Apparently his reputation as a reliable salvage operator carried some weight. As they approached the colony world, Lyra stood beside Marcus on the bridge, watching the blue and green planet grow larger on the view screen. It looks much like the Fenari homeworld, she said quietly. I'm sorry you can't go back there, Marcus said. Perhaps someday the hunters will be defeated, and my people will be free, Lyra replied. Until then, I must find a new pack, a new purpose. She looked at Marcus. If your offer was sincere, I would be honored to accept it, Marcus smiled. Welcome to the team, partner. As they descended toward the colony world, both of them knew that their lives had been forever changed by their encounter. Marcus had gained not just a business partner, but a friend whose loyalty and skills would prove invaluable in the dangerous work of salvage operations, and Lyra had found something she thought she had lost forever. A pack bond with someone who would stand by her no matter what challenges lay ahead. 6 months after their arrival at the human colony world, Marcus and Lyra had transformed his modest salvage operation into something entirely new. The combination of human ingenuity and Fenari technology had created innovations that neither species could have achieved alone. Their partnership had also attracted attention from unexpected quarters. Another military contract, Lyra announced as she reviewed their communications, while Marcus worked on upgrading their latest salvage vessel. The Colonial Defense Force wants us to examine some alien wreckage they recovered near the Proxima Centauri system. Marcus looked up from the biomechanical power coupling he was installing. Over the past months, they had successfully integrated Fenari technology into human ship designs, creating hybrid vessels that were more efficient and powerful than either species could build independently. What kind of wreckage? Unknown configuration, Lyra replied, her ears twitching with interest. The CDF encountered it during a routine patrol. The ship was heavily damaged, but some systems were still active. They want us to determine its origin and capabilities. Sounds like our kind of job, Marcus said, setting down his tools. How soon do they need us? They're requesting immediate departure. The wreckage is in a contested zone, and they want to examine it before other parties arrive. Marcus nodded, understanding the implication. Since their escape from the hunters, both he and Lyra had become aware that the galaxy was a far more dangerous place than most humans realized. There were numerous hostile species, criminal organizations, and rogue factions operating in the spaces between established civilizations. The Colonial Defense Force had come to rely on their unique expertise in dealing with unknown alien technologies. Let's take the Starforge, Marcus decided, referring to their newest vessel. A hybrid design that combined a human hull with Fenari biomechanical systems. She's fast enough to get us there quickly, and tough enough to handle trouble if we run into it. As they prepared for departure, Marcus reflected on how much his life had changed. What had started as a simple salvage operation had evolved into something much more significant. He and Lyra had become the go-to team for dealing with exotic alien technologies, and their success had made them wealthy enough to expand their operations considerably. More importantly, their partnership had proven that different species could work together in ways that benefited everyone involved. The human colony had embraced Lyra as one of their own, and her presence had opened diplomatic channels with other alien refugees who had fled the various conflicts plaguing the galaxy. The journey to Proxima Centauri took 3 days, during which Marcus and Lyra reviewed the preliminary reports from the CDF patrol that had discovered the wreckage. The ship was unlike anything in their databases. Its design suggested a technology level far in advance of known species, but its construction showed signs of extreme age. The energy readings are fascinating, Lyra observed as they studied the sensor data. Whatever power source this ship uses, it's still partially active after what appears to be thousands of years. Ancient technology, Marcus mused. Always the most interesting kind. Usually the most dangerous too. When they arrived at the coordinates, they found a CDF battle group maintaining a secure perimeter around the alien vessel. The wreckage was massive, easily 10 times the size of their own ship, and its design was both beautiful and alien. Flowing curves and organic shapes suggested an aesthetic sensibility completely different from either human or Fenari design principles. Admiral Rodriguez, the battle group commander, met them via holographic communication as they approached the wreckage. Mr. Reeves, Captain Lyra, thank you for responding so quickly. As you can see, we've got something unusual on our hands. Any idea how old it is? Marcus asked, studying the alien vessel on his screens. Our preliminary scans suggest it's been drifting for at least 5,000 years, possibly longer. But here's the interesting part. It's not completely dead. There are still active power signatures deep within the ship. Lyra's ears perked up with interest. Active power after 5 millennia? That suggests technology far beyond current galactic standards. Exactly why we called you, Admiral Rodriguez replied. We need to know what we're dealing with before we make any decisions about salvage or disposal. Some of my advisors are concerned that this could be some kind of weapon or trap. Marcus and Lyra exchanged glances. They had encountered supposedly dead alien ships before that turned out to be very much alive and very dangerous. We'll need to board and conduct a thorough examination, Marcus said. But we'll take every precaution. Understood. We'll maintain our perimeter and provide support if needed. Be careful in there. The docking procedure required careful maneuvering, as the alien ship's hull was composed of a material that seemed to shift and flow like liquid metal. Marcus finally found what appeared to be an airlock, though its design was unlike anything he had seen before, a circular opening that dilated like an iris when they approached. The ship recognizes our presence, Lyra observed as they suited up for EVA. It's responding to us, which suggests some kind of active intelligence, or automated systems that are more sophisticated than we've encountered before, Marcus replied, checking his equipment one final time. Either way, we go in ready for anything. The interior of the ancient ship was breathtaking. The corridors were works of art as much as functional spaces, with walls that seemed to pulse with gentle bioluminescence. The architecture flowed in organic curves that created a sense of movement even in stillness. But what caught Marcus's attention immediately was the technology. "This isn't just biomechanical," he said, running his scanners over the walls. "It's actually alive. The ship itself is a living organism." Lyra's golden eyes widened as she processed this information. "A bioship. I have heard legends of such vessels, but I thought they were myths. The technology required to create a living starship is beyond anything known to current galactic civilization." They made their way deeper into the vessel, following corridors that seemed to guide them toward the ship's core. Along the way, they encountered chambers filled with what appeared to be stasis pods, though these were far more sophisticated than the medical equipment on Lyra's ship. Most were empty, but some still contained the preserved remains of the ship's original crew. "They're beautiful," Lyra whispered as they examined one of the intact pods. The being inside was tall and ethereal, with features that seemed to combine the best aspects of multiple species. Its skin had a translucent quality that revealed complex patterns of bioluminescent organs beneath the surface. "The ethereals," Marcus said, recognition dawning as he compared what he was seeing to ancient legends and historical fragments. "I've heard stories about them in some of the older human databases. They were supposed to be one of the first spacefaring species, masters of biological and consciousness technologies. What happened to them? Nobody knows for sure. They disappeared from galactic history about 10,000 years ago. Some say they transcended physical existence. Others believe they were destroyed by some great catastrophe." As they continued exploring, the ship itself began to respond more actively to their presence. Lights flowed along the corridors ahead of them, clearly guiding them toward a specific destination. The bioluminescent patterns in the walls became more complex and beautiful, almost like the ship was welcoming them. Finally, they reached what could only be the ship's central consciousness chamber. The room was dominated by a massive organic structure that pulsed with soft light. Clearly, the bioship's brain and heart combined into one incredible organ. But what drew their attention immediately was the figure suspended within a crystalline matrix at the center of the chamber. Unlike the preserved remains they had found elsewhere, this being was clearly alive. Its chest rose and fell with slow, steady breathing, and the bioluminescent patterns under its skin pulsed in rhythm with the ship's own life signs. But most remarkably, as they approached, its eyes opened. The ethereal's gaze was ancient and wise, holding depths of knowledge and experience that made Marcus feel like a child. When it spoke, its voice resonated not just in the air, but somehow directly in their minds. "Greetings, young travelers. I am Aethon, guardian of the vessel Luminous Tide. It has been a long time since I have encountered other intelligent beings." Marcus found his voice first. "How long have you been here?" "Time flows differently in deep stasis," Aethon replied. "But I believe it has been approximately 7,000 of your years since my people departed this realm of existence." "Departed?" Lyra asked. "Where did they go?" Aethon's expression became serene. "To a higher plane of existence, one beyond the physical limitations of matter and energy. They achieved consciousness, transcendence, becoming beings of pure thought and will." "But you didn't go with them," Marcus observed. "Someone had to remain behind," Aethon explained. "My people foresaw that other species would eventually achieve spaceflight and face the same challenges we once did. I volunteered to stay and serve as a guide for those who might need wisdom and assistance." Marcus and Lyra exchanged glances, both thinking of the current galactic situation. The slave traders, the wars, the exploitation of weaker species by stronger ones. "The galaxy could certainly use some guidance right now," Marcus said. Aethon's luminous eyes studied them both intently. "Yes, I can sense the conflicts and suffering that plague this era, but I also sense something else. A bond between different species. A cooperation that transcends racial boundaries. This is what my people hope to see." "You're talking about our partnership," Lyra said, "among other things. The human capacity for innovation and the Fenari instinct for loyalty, combined in service of something greater than either species could achieve alone. This is the model that could transform galactic civilization." Aethon gestured, and the chamber filled with holographic displays showing star charts and species data from across the galaxy. "There are others like you, individuals and small groups who have learned to work together across species lines. But they are scattered and isolated, unaware of each other's existence." "What are you suggesting?" Marcus asked, though he was beginning to suspect where this conversation was leading. I am suggesting that it is time for those who believe in cooperation over exploitation to unite. The hunters and beings like them represent the old way of thinking. Might makes right. The strong dominate the weak, but you represent something new, something better. The holographic displays zoomed in on specific star systems, highlighting locations where multi-species cooperative efforts were taking place. Marcus was amazed to see how many there were. Research stations, trading posts, refugee settlements, even some military units that combined personnel from multiple species. We could connect them, Lyra realized. Create a network of cooperation that spans multiple sectors. Precisely, Aethon confirmed, and I can provide the technology to make it possible. The luminous tide is equipped with communication systems that can reach across vast distances instantaneously, manufacturing facilities that can produce technologies combining the best aspects of multiple species innovations, medical systems that can treat beings of any known biology. Marcus felt excitement building as the possibilities became clear. We could create safe havens for refugees, research centers for developing new technologies, training facilities for multi-species crews, an entire network dedicated to cooperation instead of exploitation. The logistics would be enormous, Lyra pointed out, coordinating between dozens of different species and cultures, establishing secure communication protocols, creating standardized technologies that everyone can use, which is why you will not be doing this alone, Aethon said. I will accompany you, providing guidance and access to ethereal technologies. Together, we can build something that will change the course of galactic history. Over the following hours, they worked out the basic framework of what would become known as the Cooperation Initiative. Using the luminous tide as their mobile headquarters, they would travel from system to system, making contact with other multi-species groups and offering them the resources and technologies needed to expand their operations. The first major challenge came sooner than expected. As they were preparing to depart the Proxima system, Admiral Rodriguez contacted them with urgent news. We've got a problem, the Admiral reported. Long-range sensors have detected a large hunter fleet approaching this system. Estimated arrival time: 18 hours. Marcus felt his blood chill. How large? 27 ships, including several motherships. This isn't a normal raiding party, this is a full-scale invasion force. Lyra's ears flattened against her head. They must have detected the energy signatures from the luminous tide. Ancient ethereal technology would be incredibly valuable to them. We need to evacuate the research teams and get out of here, Marcus said. But Aethon's voice interrupted his planning. No, the ethereal said firmly. Running will only delay the inevitable. The hunters will continue to pursue this technology until they acquire it or destroy it. It is time to make a stand. With what? Marcus asked. We've got a single battle group against 27 hunter ships. Aethon smiled, and suddenly the luminous tide systems came fully online around them. The ship had been operating on minimal power, but now Marcus could feel the incredible energies flowing through its biomechanical systems. You underestimate what this vessel is capable of. Over the next several hours, Aethon demonstrated technologies that defied everything Marcus thought he knew about physics and engineering. The luminous tide could generate defensive fields that were virtually impenetrable, weapons that could disable entire fleets without destroying them, and manufacturing systems that could produce whatever equipment they needed in minutes rather than months. But more importantly, the ship's communication arrays reached out across the galaxy, sending calls for assistance to every cooperative multi-species group within range. The response was immediate and overwhelming. 12 different groups are responding, Lyra reported as messages flooded in from across known space. Mixed human-alien crews, refugee fleets, even some military units that have gone rogue from their governments to fight the hunters. They're converging on our position, Marcus added, studying the tactical displays. Estimated arrival time: 16 hours. When the hunter fleet finally arrived in the Proxima system, they found something they had never encountered before. A united force, representing dozens of different species, all working together with a common purpose. The luminous tide served as the command vessel for what became known as the Battle of Proxima Station, the first major engagement of the Cooperation Wars. The battle itself was unlike anything in recorded galactic history. Instead of the usual pattern of might makes right warfare, The cooperative forces used tactics that emphasized protecting civilians and minimizing casualties on both sides. When hunter ships were disabled, their crews were offered the chance to surrender and join the cooperative network, rather than being executed or imprisoned. Many accepted. "This is incredible," Marcus said as he watched the tactical display. Hunter crews were defecting in unprecedented numbers, apparently inspired by the example of cooperation they were witnessing. "They're choosing cooperation over exploitation. It is the natural tendency of most intelligent species," Athon explained. "The hunter system works only because individuals feel they have no choice but to exploit or be exploited. When presented with a third option, cooperation for mutual benefit, many will choose it." The battle ended not with the destruction of the hunter fleet, but with its transformation. More than half of the original hunter ships joined the cooperative network, bringing with them invaluable intelligence about other hostile factions and the locations of species being held in slavery. In the aftermath, Marcus found himself standing on the bridge of the luminous tide, looking out at a fleet that represented something entirely new in galactic history. A true coalition of species working together for the benefit of all. "So what happens now?" he asked Athon. "Now the real work begins," the ethereal replied. "We have proven that cooperation is possible on a large scale, but building a lasting network that can resist the forces of exploitation and maintain peace across multiple sectors will require dedication, wisdom, and continued innovation." Lyra joined them at the viewport, her golden eyes reflecting the lights of the fleet. "It won't be easy. There are still hostile factions out there, and not everyone will want to abandon the old ways." "No," Marcus agreed. "But we've shown that there's a better way, and that's something worth fighting for." As the newly formed cooperation fleet prepared to depart for their next mission, liberating a slave world in the Vega system, Marcus reflected on the journey that had brought him to this point. It had started with a simple salvage operation, fixing an abandoned alien ship, but that act of basic human decency had ultimately led to something that could transform galactic civilization. "You know," he said to his companions, "I think this is going to be the most interesting job I've ever had." Athon's ancient laughter filled the bridge. "Young Marcus, I believe you are correct. The universe is about to become a much more cooperative place, and in the depths of space, the luminous tide led its diverse fleet toward the stars, carrying with it the hope of a galaxy where all species could work together for the common good. The age of exploitation was ending, and the era of cooperation had begun.